Hello my dear students and welcome once again to Zenith Academy Online. Today we are doing the chapter Endocrine Glands from ICSE Class 10 Biology. And in this video module we'll be talking about the gland Pituitary. So let's talk in detail about Pituitary gland. So let me take my pen. Okay children, so Pituitary gland is a small projection about the size of a pea. Pea, you know, mutter, okay, which hangs from the base of the midbrain below the hypothalamus. So below the hypothalamus it hangs, okay, from the base of the midbrain. Remember the position, it is very important, asked many times in the exam. So it hangs from the base of the midbrain below the hypothalamus. So this is how the pituitary gland looks like. Can you see there are two lobes, 1 and 2, and there is a small, you can see here, okay, intermediary lobe. I will tell you about all these parts later on. So let's start. So pituitary gland is a small projection about the size of a pea which hangs from the base of the midbrain below the hypothalamus. It is also known as the master gland. Okay, it's a master gland because it seems to control practically all the endocrine glands. It controls all the endocrine glands and stimulates the other endocrine glands to secrete their own respective hormones. So what does it do? See, pituitary gland has two lobes. We'll talk about these two lobes later. So these two lobes are secreting different hormones. It is secreting ACTH, MSH, GH, TSH, and another gonadotropins. It is secreting antidiuretic hormone, prolactin, oxytocin, all these things. Okay, so what are these hormones doing? They are stimulating the other glands, like the thyroid stimulating hormone is stimulating the thyroid to release thyroxine. Are you getting it? So what does it do? So the pituitary gland releases some hormones, and these hormones in turn tell the other endocrine glands to release or stimulate the other endocrine glands to release their own respective hormones as and when required. Okay, that is why it is known as master gland. It is very small but is practically controlling all the other glands. So now let's talk. Pituitary gland has two distinct lobes. दो अलग-अलग lobes हैं, ठीक है? Can you see here? One is anterior lobe and then next is posterior. Anterior मतलब आगे का, posterior पीछे का. Anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. The entire pituitary gland weighs only about half gram. So the total weight of the full is 0.5 gram or half gram. The front part of the posterior pituitary is different from the rest of the lobe and is called the intermediate lobe. So this intermediate lobe, can you see this part? This is intermediate lobe. Okay. The intermediate lobe is almost absent in humans, but much larger and more functional in some lower animals. So let's see. This looks like somewhat like this. Can you see the darker side, darker colored, this thing? Okay, this is your intermediate lobe. This is anterior lobe. This is posterior lobe. Okay, so first we will talk about anterior pituitary. So anterior pituitary releases many hormones. So we have categorized. First is growth hormone, okay, GH. Then thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. Then there are gonad stimulating hormones, also known as gonadotropic hormones. Now they release three hormones. Okay children, they release follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. It releases luteinizing hormone, LH, and it also releases prolactin. These are the three hormones that is released, and all three of them, follicle stimulating, luteinizing and prolactin, all of them are collectively known as gonad stimulating hormone. Okay, then there is adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. Okay, these are the four broad categories of hormones released by anterior pituitary. Let's talk about each of them in detail. First of all, we will talk about growth hormone. So anterior pituitary is releasing growth hormone. It is releasing thyroid stimulating adrenocorticotropic. Then these all three are your gonadotropic hormones. Okay, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and prolactin. We'll talk about all of them. First, let's talk about growth hormone. So it is essential for the normal growth of our body. It is also known as somatotropin. It is very important to know the other names also. Very, very important for 1 mark questions. Somatotropin. Okay, where somatic means body and tropic means stimulating. Okay, so it stimulates our body so that our body can grow normally. Okay, so here is the growth hormone. You can see it acts on bones, muscles, and organs. So now the deficiency of growth hormone in childhood. Deficiency of growth hormone in childhood results in dwarfism. Okay, so in dwarfism, what happens? The adult do not fully develop, okay, and retains the body proportions of a child. So when we grow big, when we age, okay, so when we are aging, our organs and our body parts are not growing as an adult. It retains the proportion of a child and we remain like a dwarf when there is a deficiency of growth hormone in childhood. Did you get it? Now, if there is an over secretion in childhood, then this results in gigantism. Okay, so the long bone length grows beyond the normal, and the human giants, यहाँ पे giants आएगा, okay, and human giants up to 2.7 meters in height are produced. So they produce giants. So both of them, okay, the deficiency of growth hormone and the over secretion, when this happens in childhood, we have these two abnormalities. One is dwarfism. When there is a deficiency of growth hormone, then it is dwarfism. The adult do not fully develop and retains the body proportion of a child. Okay, it remains dwarf. He looks like an adult. Okay, the facial expression, face and all looks like an adult. Okay, but the proportions of the body is like of a child. Okay, the long bones, the overall body growth is of a child. Then if there is an over secretion, it leads to a disease known as gigantism. Okay, where the long bone lengths are beyond normal. They are the long bone length. Long bones means the long bones, hands, feet, legs, all those long bones. Okay, the femur bones. So the long bones length are beyond normal, and the human giants up to 2.7 meters are in height are produced. Then what is acromegaly? Now children, please remember, if the oversecretion of the growth hormone suddenly occurs in an adult. So the first two things that we studied, dwarfism and gigantism, was the deficiency of growth hormone and the oversecretion of growth hormone in childhood. Whereas when you are a fully grown adult and suddenly there is an oversecretion of growth hormone, then there is an extra growth of bones, okay, extra growth of bones in the face, particularly the jaw. So can you see the jawline is so big of this man, okay, and in hands and feet you will see that these palms and the feet and the overall length of these hands are very large, okay, and the person develops large nose and thick lips. Can you see large nose and thick lips of this person? So this condition is known as acromegaly, where acro is height or extremity and megaly means large. I hope acromegaly is clear to you. This happens when there is an oversecretion of growth hormone suddenly in adult. Now let's go about the next hormone. We have studied growth hormone. Now thyroid stimulating hormone. We have already studied the thyroid hormone in the thyroid gland in detail, and we know the thyroid gland releases thyroxine. So what does our pituitary gland has to do with it? Okay, the pituitary gland releases a hormone known as thyroid stimulating hormone. So it stimulates the thyroid hormone. Okay, so thyroid stimulating hormone जो होता है TSH, it activates our thyroid so that the thyroid can secrete thyroxine. Okay. And this is how thyroid stimulating hormone acts on the thyroid gland. It stimulates the thyroid gland that, okay, thyroid gland, now you start your functioning. Now you release thyroid hormone. Okay, thyroxine. So we have read about this in detail in the previous class. Now we'll talk about gonad stimulating hormones or gonadotropic hormones. What is, as the name suggests, gonad. So it regulates the activity of the gonads. Testis is the male gonads, ovary is the female gonads, right? So gonadotropic hormones are basically of three types. First is follicle stimulating hormone. So it stimulates the egg formation in female, okay, and sperm formation in males. As the name suggests, it is follicle stimulating hormone. It is stimulating in the form helping in the formation of egg, the follicles, like egg in females and sperms in males. Okay. Next is luteinizing hormone, LH. It stimulates the formation of corpus luteum to produce female hormone progesterone, and it also stimulates the testis to produce the male hormone testosterone. I hope this is clear. So what does follicle stimulating hormone do? Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the egg formation in females and sperm formation in males, whereas the luteinizing hormone stimulates the formation of corpus luteum to produce female hormone, which is progesterone, and testis to produce the male hormone, that is testosterone. So see here, just a second. So see here, three hormones. Follicle stimulating hormone. What does follicle stimulating hormone? It is telling the ovaries, okay, to release eggs. It is telling the testis to release sperms. Now what does luteinizing hormone do? Luteinizing hormone is telling the ovaries to release its hormone, that is estrogen or progesterone. And it is telling the testosterone, it is telling the testis to release the hormone testosterone. Is that clear? Now third is prolactin. Prolactin is helping in release of milk. Okay. So see here, prolactin is helping in release of milk. So three hormones, I will again repeat. Follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin. Clear? So these are the three gonadotropic hormones. Follicle stimulating, telling the ovaries to release eggs, telling the testis to release sperm. Luteinizing hormone, telling the ovaries to release the hormone, and luteinizing hormone is telling the testes to release the hormone, whereas prolactin is telling the breast to release milk. Now we will talk about the adrenocorticotropic hormones, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. It regulates the activity of the adrenal cortex. We have already learned adrenal gland in detail. So it tells the adrenal gland to release its own hormone. So see here, ACTH is telling the adrenal cortex to release cortical hormones. Please note this, all of them, we have used the word trophic behind them, right? Gonadotropic, adenocorticotropic, adenocorticotropic, everywhere we have used the word tropic. So what does tropic hormone refers to? It refers to such hormones which stimulate other endocrine glands to produce their specific hormones. Okay, so what does it do? Tropic hormones are those hormones which are going and telling the endocrine gland, which are stimulating the endocrine gland to produce their specific hormones. Okay, such as gonadotropic hormones secreted by anterior pituitary also stimulate the gonads to produce certain hormones. Now, tropic means influencing the activity of the named organs, such as thyrotropic for thyroid, adrenocorticotropic for adrenal cortex, etc. Now we have studied the hormones from anterior pituitary. Now we'll talk about hormones from posterior pituitary. So posterior pituitary, anterior we have already done. Now we'll do posterior. Posterior releases only two hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin. Okay, vasopressin, it is also known as antidiuretic hormone, ADH, and next is oxytocin. Let's talk about these two in detail. So anterior pituitary we have finished. Now we are doing posterior pituitary. In posterior pituitary we have vasopressin and oxytocin. Let's talk about them. First is vasopressin. Okay, vasopressin is also known as antidiuretic hormone, ADH. So you have to learn both the names. You can say it either antidiuretic hormone or more commonly vasopressin. Okay, there are two major functions. First is it constricts the blood vessel with rise in the blood pressure. So what does it do? It constricts the blood vessels. It presses the blood vessels. Okay. So what happens? The blood pressure will increase. You can imagine it while you are gardening, while you are watering your plants. Okay. With a pipe, when you constrict the pipe, when you press the pipe, what do you see? The water gushes out with much pressure. Right? In the same way, when blood vessels are constricted, the blood pressure will rise. Right? Now the next function is it acts on the kidney and increase the reabsorption of water from the kidney tubule. So it takes up, it reabsorbs the water from the kidney tubule. Therefore, the urine will have less water. Okay, the water will get retened in the body. Water फिर से हम use कर सकते हैं. That water is not lost. Right? So see here, what is the function of this antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin? See, first of all, vasoconstriction is its function. What is this function known as? Vasoconstriction. In this, the blood vessels are constricted and this increases the blood pressure. Next is, it is against excessive urine production. Antidiuresis means it prevents making too much urine. That is water retention. So what does it do? It reabsorbs the water from the kidney tubules. When it is reabsorbing the water from the kidney tubules, less water is here. So less urination. Correct? So it is against excessive urine production. And both of them lead to increase in blood pressure. Okay, children? So I hope antidiuretic hormone is very clear. Two functions, vasoconstriction and antidiuresis. And since it is, since it is doing vasoconstriction, constriction of the blood vessels, that is why it is known as vasopressin. And since it is, its function is antidiuresis, that is why its other name is antidiuretic hormone. So with the name only you can find out its function, right? Now what happens due to deficiency of ADH? Obviously, what was the function of ADH? To reabsorb water, so less urine can flow. But now the deficiency, if it is deficient, means more water will flow in the urine, so more urination. So deficiency of ADH causes diabetes insipidus. I had already explained you diabetes mellitus, right? Now this is diabetes insipidus. Insipidus means this diabetes is also known as water diabetes in common language. In this, urination is frequent and copious. Okay, frequent मतलब बार बार है, copious मतलब large volume में है, right? Resulting in loss of water from the body and the person becomes thirsty. So here you can see pituitary gland produces insufficient ADH and hence the kidney make a lot of urine, and you can see the urine, there is a lot of urine and the person keeps on feeling thirsty because there is excessive loss of water. So remember, the word diabetes means passing out excessive amount of urine. Okay, passing out excessive amount of urine. We have studied about two diabetes. Last time we studied about diabetes mellitus, where you remember, if there is insufficient insulin, then the urine contains sugar, right? Sugar absorption is not happening. Okay. So in diabetes mellitus, the urine contains sugar caused due to insufficient insulin. Whereas In diabetes insipidus or water diabetes, there is no sugar in the urine. There is only excess of water in the urine. So insipid, what does the word insipid means? It means tasteless or blank, referring to the absence of sugar in urine. Whereas this mellitus, the melly word means honey or sweet. So you remember diabetes means excessive amount of urine. But diabetes mellitus means in that urine sugar is there. Whereas in diabetes insipidus, insipid matlab tasteless, so no sugar. Clear to you? Only excess water. Now the last hormone is oxytocin. In Greek, oxys means sharp or quick and tokos means childbirth. So it means quick childbirth, right? It stimulates vigorous contractions of the uterus in the pregnant mother, leading to the birth of the baby. So what does quick childbirth mean? Quick childbirth means, see what happens during labor. What happens when the child is about to be born, baby is about to be born. The uterus constricts, okay? There are contractions of uterus continuously. And when there are one after one contraction of the uterus, the baby is released out very easily. So what does oxytocin do? As the name suggests, quick childbirth. It stimulates the vigorous contractions of the uterus in the pregnant mother, which leads to the birth of the baby. It also helps in ejection of milk once the baby is out of the womb. So it does two functions. Quick childbirth, okay, that is, it stimulates vigorous contractions of the uterus, and after the baby is born, it stimulates the milk ejection from the breasts as well, right? So what happens here? See, the baby's growth takes up all the space in the uterus. As the baby is slowly growing, then the strep receptors are activated in the uterus, and then the brain signals for the release of oxytocin. As the oxytocin is released, it causes the uterus muscles to contract, and when there are one after one contractions of uterus muscles, it leads to, and these contractions get stronger until the baby is delivered, and hence the baby is delivered with the help of oxytocin. Quick delivery of the baby with the help of oxytocin. So now you know it does two major functions. The posterior pituitary releases oxytocin. So the release of oxytocin helps in contraction of smooth muscles, and baby is born. And here on the myoepithelial cell, it works, and it helps in the release of milk. So I hope you have understood everything very well. I'll just quickly revise. Anterior pituitary releases growth hormone, very important for the overall growth. Thyroid stimulating hormone, which tells the thyroid to release more hormones. Adenocorticotropic hormones, which tells the adrenal cortex to release its hormones. Then these all three are your gonadotropic hormones: follicle stimulating, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin. Now comes the posterior pituitary. It releases only two hormones: vasopressin, which presses the vessels, blood vessels, increases the blood pressure. ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which helps in reabsorption of water in the kidney. Oxytocin, which helps in the release of milk and which helps in the uterus contractions. I hope pituitary gland is extremely easy after watching this video, isn't it? So if you have liked our content, please share it with your friends and keep the learning always on. Thank you, my dear students.